Good morning. Welcome to my third podcast, More Than Mortgages. I am your host, Katrina Lucisano with Silverton Mortgage. And I am so excited to have my guest, John Withers of HowMoneyWorks. I thought that would be fitting for my industry right now. We could use some help on how money works. John, I've known you for a few years, and you have such an amazing story. What was your previous career, and how did you get to this career?
Oh, well, good morning, Katrina. And first off, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
My first career, I was very fortunate. I was able to attend the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and I was a career military officer. I was a helicopter pilot in the Cold War, and then I commanded a unit over in Desert Storm. And after that wrapped up, I thought, well, my next gig would be following with the corporate world. So I was able to get on with a defense contractor, and I worked for them for about 10 years. And then I had my boss's boss, who was a fellow academy graduate, he pulled me aside and said, okay, you're going to have to make a career decision pretty soon. He said, if you want to stay doing what you're doing, you're going to have to do this and this and this and this. If you don't want to do that, get out now. And so I decided I want to get out now. And
Wow.
So I started my own company. This was in 2005, and online advertising was just coming online. It was kind of the Wild West days of Google AdWords and that kind of such. And that was a lot of fun. But that was when I really found the limits of what I knew about money. I thought I was a lot smarter about money than I was until I started on my own gig. And so I started my own research. And then through meeting some people and coming across, I was able to get into the financial industry, and I've been there for a couple of years when I found the HowMoneyWorks project, which has gradually become an organization now. And so I was able to put together my passion for teaching and also just helping people, because I was so fortunate in so many ways, and yet I made so many mistakes in so many other ways. And one of the things you learn about, especially in aviation, is you don't want to create your own mistakes. You want to learn from somebody else's. And so that's kind of what I want to be able to do, is help people,
Right.
not make those mistakes.
Well, thank you, first of all, for your service.
Thank you.
So appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And I know this book, How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, really caught my attention. And one of the things I just wanted to breeze over was, as the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis states, it means financial literacy, means the understanding of how to earn, spend, save, manage, and invest money. And it says having a strong understanding of financial literacy will allow you to make better financial decisions that can hopefully improve your day-to-day life. And I don't know about you, but for me, every call that I take, it seems as people are stressed out. They're worried about buying a house, keeping the house, keeping up with improvements, going to the grocery store. So how do you use your book to help folks? What is kind of your starting point, and what is the goal?
Well, overall, the goal is to basically, first off, it's meeting people where they are. As I've said to you before, money, we can talk about money kind of in the abstract, but we can't talk about abstract when we talk about our money. Our
true.
money is a very, very emotional subject.
Yes.
Okay. And, the basic money skills are never taught anywhere. Okay. So a lot of people it's a situation, they don't really know what they don't know.
Right.
And so typically what you know about money is what you see as you're growing up, your whatever family environment or growing up environment you have. And if you're fortunate to be in a family where they have some solid financial foundation, then you get some good habits right away. If not, then you don't. And that's why you see some of these things kind of perpetuate themselves from generation to generation. My dad was a working class Irishman. He was very typical of the World War II generation. And so he had a pension, he had Social Security, he retired at 65, and he was dead by 75. That was very typical for that. None of those are true anymore. I mean, our pensions, I think less than 9% of people have pensions now.
I was surprised about that.
Yeah. And most of those are like government, military, some others. Social Security is there. I mean, there's a lot of discussions about it, but I'm sure they'll find some ways to get around that. But the biggest thing is that people are not living 10 years after retirement anymore. They're living to like 90s or 100s. The numbers tell us, Katrina, that somewhere on the planet there's a child alive today that will live to be the age of 120.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, because of
I hope that's not me.
yeah. So
Just saying.
The answer to that is we have to meet people where they are, and so it's the idea of first, either through conversations or through classes or through getting the books in their hands, where they start to understand some of the basics and be able to apply that to their own life. And that's what the purpose of the book is.
And share with us, if you don't mind, where did the book originate from, and how do you?
Okay, it's written by two gentlemen, Tom Matthews and Steve Siebold. Tom is he's a 40-year veteran of the finance industry. He has done nothing else. I mean, he came out of college and went straight into the industry, and a lot of this is based on some of the things that he saw. What Steve has done is he's been a mental toughness coach and a professional athlete, and he kind of brought the mental toughness side to the equation, for people to not only recognize not just what to do, but also the importance of doing it, and the importance of realizing that it's going to take a little bit of discipline to do.
So let's talk about that doing part. I know, first of all, for people who can't see, of course, with our podcast, I wanted to point out that this book is a super easy read, very easy to read, very understandable. So I looked in the middle section, and it says the 7 money milestones. And when I was going through this, I thought, yep, most people who I talk to are at 6. So they've skipped over the first through the 5th. So we have, the first one is financial education, which is what you're doing with the book.
Right. And it's both, part of financial education is recognizing that the financial industry is the largest industry on the planet. It is by far the most complex industry. If you take your industry, real estate, which is the second largest industry, and the third is retail, you add real estate and retail together, multiply it by 2, you still don't have the size of the finance industry.
Wow.
Okay, it's huge. So it has its own language. It has it, and it evolves, especially now with the pace of technology is just increasing, and there's a whole lot of dark theories about how AI is going to affect all of that and whatever. So the whole idea of it is you can take a lifetime educating yourself, or you can start working with someone who is educated, who is licensed and trained in that area. And so
Give you that roadmap.
Exactly. So that's the first part of education. As you said, I don't want to get ahead of you here, but that's as you said, when everybody thinks of money, they think of the how do I go about building wealth? Okay, it would be like, how about go about building a building? But still, there's a whole lot of other things that really have to happen first in order for that wealth building to basically take root and to be strong enough to survive. Right.
So just to repeat, the first step is the financial education part to make sure that you ask these questions, right? You get out there, and I don't always say trust Google either, right? I mean,
Google is, it's like anything else. It will throw everything at you. Now, this is where I bring a little bit of background into this, because I used to manage campaigns. When you search something on Google, you see all the paid ads that come up. I used to be one of the people who used to manage how to put those ads on those places. So basically, the ads you see when you are the ones that they do 2 things. 1, they're very well financed, and 2, they work very, very well.
Right.
Okay. So that's why the people that put them there keep doing that. And the finance industry has a lot of good sounding ads that are good for them, but may not necessarily be good for the average consumer.
Right.
And so that's where the education piece comes in, because that's why the subtitle of our book is "Stop Being a Sucker." You're not a sucker because you're stupid. You're a sucker because you just don't know things. You can be taken advantage of. And so that's what the whole education piece. And when working with a trusted advocate, like in your industry, when someone works with you, I mean, if someone really wants to learn your industry and go off and do it all themselves, I mean, there's nothing that says they can't do it, but they can save themselves a lot of time and a lot of hassle and a lot of heartache if they work with a professional like yourself. Well, it's the same thing in the finance industry.
Yeah, it's like Steve Jobs with Apple, right? He didn't develop the computer, he just made it better.
Exactly.
So the second step is proper protection. And I know for me personally, those who have listened to my other podcasts know that I am a widow, and thank goodness that my husband was in the financial business, so he had adequate insurance so that I can not have to, sell my house and move in with my parents. Okay. I didn't have to have a GoFund page. I mean,
Right.
I hate to say that, but it breaks my heart when I see so many times on Facebook somebody passing away unexpectedly and they didn't have any insurance. So with that second step, I think that's critical. It doesn't matter if you're single. You can get any kind of temporary life insurance for your working years, and then a permanent if you want to look at that for your later years, and then also that disability protection. I think a lot of people, and actually right now for me at work, we have our open enrollment going to be coming up. So
Sure.
everyone out there, take a look at what your company offers, because it could be super cheap to get an extended disability policy, or bump up your life insurance if you're not sure, to go look for it on the outside. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, if you're working with an employer, that offers benefits, you definitely want to make sure you take the
Yeah.
time to understand your benefits package. And if there are benefits there that you can take care of, then by all means, continue to do that, because some of those benefits are reduced or perhaps even no cost. And so you really want to make sure you take advantage of those. As far as the protection piece is concerned, life insurance is a major part of that, but it is often, the purpose of it is often misunderstood. When I die, my relatives or whoever I say, will get money. And it's like, so it's not going to help me, it's just going to help, my family.
Yes, I hear that. Yeah.
And I get that. So I said, well, especially if I'm not married right now, I'm not planning on getting married. I don't really need life insurance. I don't have any money to give anything with. Well, there are other, in addition to having the basic death benefit protection, especially if you have people that are either partially or completely financially reliant upon you, then you need to have a plan in place that will continue to work if you're not around to complete it.
Right.
Okay. And I come from a military aviation, which is a hazardous occupation. So
Yeah.
I went to, in my 20-year career, I went to way too many memorial services for friends of mine, and then watched families and just watched how their whole situation has changed because they're going through the trauma of losing a loved one.
Yeah.
And then it may lead to to financial hardship if that person wasn't prepared financially for that. So, but there are other benefits in the insurance and in life insurance policies today that allow for what we call living benefits, where you can actually benefit from them while you're still alive. So that's why. And again, this is where education. This is where talking with a professional, licensed professional, makes a huge difference.
Right. I was going to say too, I know when my husband passed, I had just one of my children who was under 18. And even though I had one that was full-time college, she received no Social Security survivor benefit. And my son only got it for 4 months until he turned 18.
Right.
For me, because I was still working, I got the token $225. And then when I looked at my husband's insurance, and I thought, well, you know what? Yeah, if I add what his Social Security would have been for as long as his parents lived, then that still didn't come up to enough of what the life insurance was. So, and then moving along here. So
Sure.
our third item would be the emergency fund. This is the problem when people buy homes and they have just enough to close, and I'm guilty of it. Okay. I'll say, all right, we need to show exactly $40,100, and that's what we show for closing. And I'm very guilty of that. I feel bad that I have not even suggested to someone, maybe you should make sure that you have at least 2 paychecks. What do you have coming in after you close? Because if something happens that you're not prepared for with the house, okay, that's going to be a problem.
I think the pandemic taught a lot of people this lesson in a very, very bad way. Who knew that the government was going to essentially shut down
Right.
series of
Overnight.
industries, not initially for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, but then, we were living in Virginia at the time, and 2 weeks stretched into 5 months very, very, very quickly, So there are a lot of these people that couldn't work, people that were in service businesses, the gym owners, the hair salon people, all of the, and, a lot of restaurant people. Restaurants are trying to figure out how to feed people when they couldn't bring them in. And you find out that, that if your income gets interrupted somehow, then a whole lot of bad things happen. I think one of the statistics in our book, Katrina, is that according to the recent numbers that the last numbers I saw, 44% of Americans today cannot cover a $400 emergency without going into debt.
I believe that.
Okay. And typically that debt means I put it on a credit card, okay, which is, got horrendous, finance charges, the 20, 21, 20, could be up to 29%. I keep getting the things in the mail all the time. I'm sure you do too. You get your card and you can enjoy it. 28.5.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to enjoy a finance charge like that.
Yeah.
So we recommend. And it doesn't have to. It has to be available, but maybe not necessarily, 100% segregated. But the whole idea is having it. We recommend, a minimum of 3 paychecks.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. What is the recommended? Is that I wonder if that's enough now.
Well, we say
when we look at food costs and
we say 3 to 6.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of it is comfort level. But again, it's all, one of the things about the milestones is that, we try to address each one of these. We don't necessarily address them in isolation, and we don't necessarily have to address them in order. But, so therefore, our emergency fund has to be available, liquid, and dedicated. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be sitting in like a low interest savings account or something like that. So.
I was just thinking, I know for mortgages, we can really go up to almost 50% of one's gross income. So if you think about it, your net income, and if you have just 3 of that net income paychecks in an emergency fund, that could be 1 month's mortgage. And if you aren't able to, let's say you get laid off or, all of a sudden your car breaks down with the cost of car repairs. So I would... Hopefully people will start to be able to accumulate a little bit more, which brings us to this debt management. So I hate debit cards because when I look at people's bank statements, it's used to be 2 pages, 3 pages. Now it's 10 because Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, Moe's, it's just, we're doing breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, all on debit cards. And I do think that people, it's so easy, myself included, to lose track of what your day-to-day things are. And then also the online subscriptions, right? Hulu and Yahoo, I mean, all these. So what happens is we end up probably having, I would say, at least 1 paycheck that we're not even keeping up with, that is just going for the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, and day to day, basically non-essentials,
right?
Type stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the 20th century, when you were kind of self-regulated because you spent basically by how much cash you had in your wallet or in your purse.
Yes.
So you're kind of self-limiting. That's
true.
there. You did not spend more cash than you had. It wasn't. But then as more and more we got used to more and more using debit cards, and then with the pandemic, where a lot of businesses, say, "Hey, we're just going to use debit cards." I remember the first time I went to a grocery store, I couldn't pay cash if I wanted to.
Yeah, you're right.
So. But the other thing about cash and then writing checks is you used to have to do this little project called balance
your checkbook. Right, that's right.
So you would see exactly where your money was going every month because you had to do that. People don't look at their statements anymore.
You're right.
They look at their balance.
Yep.
Okay. So it's when I sit down with people when we kind of categorize. I spent that much money at Starbucks. No wonder they charge. I said, well, those $8 lattes add up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I know cash flow, which of course would be what we were just talking about.
Right.
What do we have coming in? What do we have going out?
And we look at cash flow we look at both sides of what I call both sides of cash flow. One is what we were just talking about, managing expenses. and looking for ways to, basically reduce some of the outflow, that we have. When I'm talking to a group of people that I'm not when I'm giving a company class, when I'm giving a class to an organization or public, or I'm just talking one-on-one, a lot of people are asking about what can I do to increase my cash flow, and that's where this whole side gig opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
People looking to do things, especially the millennials and the Gen Zs. I think that if the Gen Zs I've talked to said that if they could just have like 3 side gigs and no permanent job, they'd be happy.
Wow.
So I mean, because that's just being able to kind of do what they want when they want, and not be not be tied down to the man or whoever, whatever that was our phrase. I don't know what it is now, but yeah, it's. And so that you can actually, you can add, to your income as well. And I think that's where a lot of people that are probably maybe 50 and older get kind of stuck, because they're thinking about, well, I have to get a promotion at my job or a different job. I said, well, maybe not. Maybe we can just do something, on the side, to kind of, bring in the additional cash flows. We get into a lot of discussions about that as well. And I work with some entrepreneur coaches too that help, with that kind of stuff.
Well, that's great. Build wealth. That's my category.
That's the fun. That's the fun one.
Right.
Okay. And now this is the thing. And of course, when people come to the class, this is the one they want to hear about. And I think a lot of people are hoping that I'll say, because I have several securities license and I'm licensed in the insurance industry, and I'm thinking most people would like to hear me say, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go out and you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, and don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And the challenge is, excuse me, is that our financial situation is as unique as our fingerprint.
Right.
You have 5 different people making the exact same amount of money. You're going to have 5 completely different financial situations because of what people do with money. So we can't say, especially in a group setting, I could do a one-on-one after I have a lengthy conversation with someone, but we can't say in a group setting, this is what we think you need to do. However, there are 4 major threats to any wealth building a plan that people have to account for. One, of course, is procrastination. They have to get started on it. Okay. 2 is you have to find some way of dealing with inflation. Okay. That usually leads to people looking at the stock market somehow, and of course that brings in the concept of market losses. So understanding what losses can do, and then looking at financial vehicles that can kind of reduce or in some cases eliminate the threat of market losses. And then the 4th one is taxes, making sure that you're thinking about taxes in your financial strategy. And that we could talk for a long time about that, and I'm going to stop there because I kind of get worked up on that part of the subject.
Yeah. Well, I know for my industry, it's been the inflationary part of it is kind of interesting, right? Because that's what's increased our home values.
Right.
So especially during COVID, people who bought homes almost have doubled their equity position, which is a wonderful form actually of wealth building. And then in addition to that, though, again, if you have family members, you need to make sure that you are protecting that asset. So what do you have suggestions on for people who, like personally, I don't think anybody should just invest only in real estate. I like to see, your 401k. Like you said, nobody has a pension anymore unless you work for a government organization. So for me, it would be the 401k, real estate. I know money market accounts and CDs are very strong right now. What other, you mentioned too with your investment vehicles, your life insurance, what were you talking about there?
Well, I mean, again, generally speaking, one of the best ways is to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And again, speaking in generality, I know a lot of people look at real estate as as a solid investment. They recognize you have to recognize that real estate's going to go up, it's going to go down, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that hey, my house has doubled in price, we should sell. So yeah, but you still got to live somewhere,
right?
And so it means you still have to buy someplace. And so if it's a good time. If it's a good time to be a seller, then it's not necessarily going to be a good time to be a buyer, and you're going to. And so you have to keep these things in mind. The thing that's interesting about the finance industry is that there are vehicles, and I can't get into specifics in a group setting like this, but there are vehicles that allow you to actually dial in how much you're willing to lose. And so you say, hey, I don't want to lose any more than X percent. And they will say, okay, well, we'll contractually guarantee that, but they might limit you on the upside, but you're protected from the downside.
I wish real estate had that.
Yeah,
built in. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, that would be nice. Now a lot of those are insurance-based contracts. So
Yeah.
that's so there are a number of, but again, that's where the conversation with some research and then the conversation with a financial professional, someone that that says, hey, this is my situation. This is what this is what I'm trying to do, and we always recommend. I hate to use the word always, but we most often recommend that when you're talking with someone, you try to find someone that's not that's an independent.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to pick on any names here, but if you're an agent for one specific company, you're going to present that company solutions, which may be very, very good solutions.
Right.
I'm not saying anything bad about that. However, one company can't, and every company will tell you this, they can't help everybody. They can only help a certain segment of people, and so that's why being an independent, where you have access to different providers, can allow the professional to structure something for someone that is very, very well tailor suited for them.
And when you're saying that, I'm thinking about even in my industry where, well, maybe you want to have the beach house, maybe the mountain house as your second home, and then your main house. What area do you want to live in? So it all ties together with what's, I guess, to spread that portfolio out.
Right.
And then I wanted to just touch on with women, because I know when I got in this industry, 30 years ago, it was pretty much always, husbands, wives. Then I guess about 10 years in, we moved to, I would see more men buying. And then in the last decade, it's been a lot of women. Professionals, and they've said, you know what, haven't met Mr. Right yet. I don't really want to. I'm going to go ahead and move. And I can see that there is definitely a difference, though. And I know you and I talked about that. And what was your phrase? You said men tend to.
Well, and I know the phrase you're referring to. I want to say this going into it, that I really personally dislike male-female stereotypes.
Right.
Okay. So, but the numbers tell us that generally speaking, that women on average are better savers than men. Men have a tendency to do better in investments because they're willing to take more risks.
Yeah. So I like that, though, because then if I know that, if I know that man is a risk taker, well, I want to be like that. But yet I'm the saver. And why wouldn't the man then say, well, okay, let me take a little bit of what the woman, how they look at their situation. They're more cautious. That's why they save more. The men might not save more, but you're right. They're willing to buy the bigger home because they just figure, oh, I'm going to see that appreciation in it.
The thing that we stress with, especially with and you brought up the women's book that we just released. The subtitle of that book is "Take Control or Lose It," and people, and we have to make sure that people don't misunderstand what we're saying. We're not advocating that couples start fighting over money, but the whole point of it is like, if whoever in the relationship, if it is a relationship of two people, whoever in the relationship is kind of the driving factor of the financial situation, it's up to the other person to make sure that they know at least what's going on and voice their opinion on it.
I agree.
Okay. So, now quite often in relationships, at least in the past, it's been, the male partner kind of leading that charge, but, and that's changing, more so now, but it's still up to, both sides to, say, hey, this is what our situation is, and, I know in my own case, I could not imagine making any kind of a major financial decision without, getting my wife's thoughts involved. Okay?
Yeah.
Because she approaches things, very, very differently than I do. And sometimes she's thinking about things or she's worried about things that I'm, I say, okay, well, I'm not so worried about that, but if you are, then we need to talk about it. And that's the whole thing.
And also, though, that the wife should know where everything is. I was fortunate that I was in an industry, a financial industry, so I knew where everything was. And my husband was able to share that with me. But, and we're going to be wrapping up very quickly here.
Sure.
And I just wanted to ask you, John, if somebody wanted to reach out and attend one of your classes, get this book, what would be the best way?
The best way would be to go to our website, which is getsmarterwithmoney.com.
Okay, I like
And
that.
that is kind of like the entrance to everything. That way there's some information there. You can request a book. There's an email newsletter that we're publishing on a regular basis with just current financial topics and things like that. But also there's some contact information where if they want to find out more about either an in-person class, or if they're not generally in the Atlanta area, they still want to do more. We do on Zoom classes as well for people that can't attend live. We try to limit those for people that are generally out at a distance, because we all know how distracting Zoom can, when you're on Zoom, you can do 3 or 4 other things and not really be paying attention to what's going on. So,
Right.
But yeah, the website getsmarterwithmoney.com would be the best place to start.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. I hope that our listeners learned something. And for me, I just would like to also give a plug, or rather, let everyone know that at Silverton Mortgage, we have a golf tournament coming up, and it's going to be held at TPC Sugarloaf, just down the street from the studio here in Duluth, Georgia. It is a beautiful golf course, and at Silverton, we have a foundation where we support families whose children are getting treatment, most of the time, very serious treatment. And all of our loans that close, a percentage goes to our foundation, and then we have 2 fundraisers a year, this golf tournament being our biggest. That golf tournament's coming up October 9th. We still have opportunities for foursomes. You can come and be a sponsor. So please reach out to me. Again, my name is Katrina Lucisano, and I can be reached at 678-778-6858. Feel free to give me a text, and also check me out on social media. Thank you so much, John. Again, appreciate it very much.
Appreciate having me.
Have a great day.